Welcome home, folks. It's time for our annual driver certification recertification course. This year truly has been big with blessings, and I'm excited to share with you the new fleet that has been bestowed upon CedarS. Before we do that, we need to get into what the requirements are for driver certification recertification. Our requirements for driving include the following: 19 years old with 2 years experience to drive vehicles on camp, 21 years old with 2 years experience to drive vehicles off camp with campers, 25 years old, 2 years experience to drive vans and buses, and buses specifically, you must possess a commercial driver's license, 25 years old, and 2 years driving experience. We need a copy of your driver's license to put on file. We need to ensure that you have a clean driving record. If there's anything we need to be alert to, please let me know. We do background checks to ensure that everything is like it should be and there's no concerns out there. As I have mentioned in years past, parents are entrusting their most precious resource with us, their children, and safety with our drivers should not be a concern for them. Earlier, I said that we have a new fleet, and as you'll recall from years past, we had lots of fun names. We had some incredible vehicles, many of them here for as long as most of us have been at camp. This year, through a generous grant and donation, we have been able to upgrade our fleet to vehicles all 3 years or less, most of them being brand new. Most of our vehicles are four-wheel drive, Super Cruise for our pickup trucks, minivans enabling 7 or 8 passengers, as well as a new school bus and a box truck. Condition is incredible. It's impeccable. I ask that you treat the vehicles with the love and respect that they deserve. Being careful what places we go. We don't drive off into campsites. If you see low-hanging branches, please do not pull underneath those and scratch up the paint. We want to preserve this fleet for as long as possible. If you were assigned a vehicle and it doesn't seem to be the correct vehicle for what you need, please let me know. I do have options to swap vehicles around. And conversely, if someone else needs a vehicle that you're using, also mention that to me, because that individual may not be certified or familiar with the operation of that vehicle. What do we need to know when driving around camp? As in years past, camp is continually growing. We have a new care house going up, just an incredible facility, but it's going to transition a lot of our traffic from Pal House, where we've known it for many years, more towards the center of camp between Spec House and Cedar House. This is an area that you're going to see increased foot traffic going to Pal House or Care House and then down over the hill as well towards the Mediterranean. So it's extremely beneficial if you're alert and in tune to what's going on in that area. We were also blessed to be able to get several new mules this year. The mules are a little bit longer than mules we've had in the past. And you'll notice when you come by housekeeping that they stick out into the road a little bit more. This is another area where I need people to really pay attention. Also with small children, that area becomes really tricky and one that really folks need to be alert to as you're driving through there. The new vehicles all come equipped with seat belts. This was a comment made from our insurance company as he saw one of the vehicles being driven around. Said, well, I understand no doors, but I assume everyone is belted in. We promptly parked the vehicle because we had no doors or seat belts. That is no longer an issue. We do have seat belts, and we ask that people are belted in when you're riding the camp vehicles. Riding in the beds of trucks, what's happened there? Well, that is something that we still can do when needed, although we hope with the Super Crew trucks that's taken care of some of that. If you're seated in the bed of a truck, as in the past, we're seated completely flat. We're not riding on the wheel wells. We're not sitting on the rails. The tailgates are closed, and we're not sitting up against there. When you're in the back of the truck, wherever you're driving on camp, the speed limit is 10 miles an hour. We don't want to bounce equipment or people around or out of the truck. Bus evacuation procedures. When we're using a bus, we need to ensure that all the emergency exits are identified prior to taking off on a trip. This proved incredibly valuable last year when we needed to get individuals off a bus. We also need to ensure that a counselor is seated near the emergency doors and that they're able to open them. They're familiar with the operation in an emergency situation. When we're operating the bus, there must be a counselor sitting near each exit. I alluded to speed limits a little bit ago when we were riding in the bed of a truck, but what about the rest of the speed limits around camp? Well, you'll be happy to know that they have not changed. It's still 15 miles an hour or no dust on main camp, 10 miles an hour when you're around the cabins, down behind the hill going towards JL, across Crown Lake, and areas such as that. For the most part, vehicles should not be required to go out into the fields or areas, far campsites. If they do, that speed limit is 5 miles an hour. But for the most part, you'll be riding in the mules or utility vehicles to get out to those areas. When you leave camp on the gravel roads, the speed limit is 35 miles an hour. Going into town, 45 to 55. Please adhere to those limits and be safe as you're traveling. Individuals seen speeding, we'll have a short discussion on that, and if it persists, driving privileges will be revoked. Hazards around camp. Many of you are familiar with the hazards we've had in years past. There's lots of campers moving here and there. We do a lot of road work, and the gravel's a little bit rolly underneath your feet, similar to marbles. A lot of animals around. I mentioned the dogs and cats and horses on camp. But what about when you go off camp? Our neighbors have black Angus. They have polled Herefords. Those are the red and white faced ones. Guinea hens, hogs, goats, sheep. It's all out there. So be alert. It's just something that we're not accustomed to seeing. And when they hop up in front of you, gives folks a little bit of a start. High water crossings. We've had an extreme amount of rain and several roads have been impassable. If that happens during your time here, please be alert and adhere to the motto, turn around, don't drown. Darkness. Camp is one of the most beautiful places on earth, and it's also one of the most dark places, one of the darkest places on earth. While we have lights at all the cabins and a central light in the field, as you get out away from the main area, very, very dark. So be alert. Some of the roadways are a little bit narrow, and it's easy if you get a little close to just kind of slip off the edge. Backing up. While the new vehicles have cameras with them, I ask that you don't use the cameras as a crutch. We can become a little too dependent, not really looking around like we're supposed to. That means we're not turning our head, we're not using our mirrors, we're relying on the picture that the camera is showing us. I can tell you from experience with my truck, the lens often gets dusty and dirty and I'm not able to see out of it properly. Please, please ensure that you have a spotter, you're still using your mirrors and looking around you as you back up. While we're talking about backing up, how far do we back up? Only as far as needed to safely pull forward. Do not back excessive distances. Heavy rains, we've had some extreme rains around here, as I mentioned, and visibility has definitely been obscured. If that happens while you're here, just pull off to the side and wait. The rain is going to pass. Cell phone policy. Texting is strictly prohibited when operating a camp vehicle, either on or off camp. Distracted drivers are dangerous drivers. Anyone reported or seen texting will have their driving privileges revoked for the summer. Cell phone use. While I don't encourage cell phone use, I understand there are occasions when that happens. For the most part, you'll be traveling with someone, and that individual should be in charge of your phone while you're driving to ensure that we don't have the distracted driving. However, there are those emergency situations where you need to use your phone. You are allowed to do that. Vehicle pre-flight. At the beginning of each day, the driver should walk around the vehicle looking for damage or any other areas of concern. If you see something there, please let me know. Do not assume that Bill knows about it. What Bill knows at this point is that the vehicles are brand new and they're pretty much spot free. Look at the tires. Make sure that our tires are serviceable. Check the tire pressure. There's no wear, no bulge on there. Turn the car on, listen for unusual noises, and check the gas. This is the vehicle pre-flight at the beginning of the day for use on camp. If you're going off camp, you need to do those checks, but also pop the hood and check the other fluids. As before, all of the lubricants are located in the Q building. Some of these vehicles have different fluids than what you have been accustomed to in the past, so if there's questions, notify me or the assistant to find out what the proper fluid is to use in the particular vehicle. Ensure that the vehicle has all of the items needed for off-camp property trips. A list of these items will be located on this vehicle transportation safety guide. This will be laminated and in the vehicle. You'll find lots of useful information on there to guide you in your trips, things to check, contact information if you have an emergency, accident procedures, etc. Vehicle post-flight. At the end of the day, what do you need to do? Well, history has proven that when you leave your windows down here, we are asking for the inside of the vehicles to get washed out. Please roll the windows up at the end of the day to ensure that we have a dry seat in the morning. Park in a designated lot or parking area, and we'll discuss those a little bit later as to where the girls' staff parks, the boys' staff, and then vehicles around camp. As I said, most of the vehicles have been sent out to delegated to specific departments, and those people all have their individual spots for the vehicles. Place the keys over the visor as in the past to make sure we do not leave keys in the ignition. And if there's any trash in there, let's clean that out. It amazes me year after year at the end of the season how many bags of trash, tools, and personal items I take out of the vehicles because they've accumulated over the summer months. Let's help each other by cleaning those out at the end of each day. Vehicle parking, I talked about that a little bit. Do not park in an ever-ready vehicle spot. If you see a green and white sign that says ever-ready vehicle, please do not park there. The staff lot is located out on the west end of the sports center. That's where the girls park, girls staff, and then boys staff and specialist parking is along the 4x6 and archery. Please don't park near the cabins or on grassy areas. We've had folks get stuck there and it just makes a real mess trying to get people pulled out and get those areas cleaned up. Sometimes it becomes real tempting just to pull up and stop in the middle of the road and jump out and run in because it's just going to take a second to do what you need to do. And we end up getting distracted or someone needs to talk to us and we've blocked the roadway preventing folks from moving back and forth. There's a lot of equipment, heavy equipment moving around camp this year. We've got hay trailers that are going to be in and out, farm equipment, as well as just our normal vehicular traffic. So please don't park in the middle of the road thinking you're going to be there just a second and you'll have no impact on anyone. Vehicle fueling. We still have our gravity-fed tanks on camp. We have 4 of those. Tank number 1 is our unleaded tank. Tanks 2 and 3 are diesel. 1 being on-road, tank 3 being off-road. And then tank number 4 is our premium no ethanol tank. That fuel is used for the mules, the golf carts, anything smaller than one of the cars. One of the big differences you're going to see this year is that in years past, I've told you only vehicles without tags are authorized to go fill up at tank number 1. That's still the case, but we only have a couple of those vehicles. So I'm asking folks to ensure that you're watching, paying attention to the gas gauge on the vehicle you're driving. The new fleet is 100% licensed and tagged, with the exception of the utility vehicles, and will be filled up in town. Express Stop is still the place where we fuel up in town. You simply pull up, press pay inside. Once you hear the fuel tanks reset, or an audible voice come across and say that we're ready to fuel, go ahead, fill up, go inside and tell them it's for CedarS Camps. They will ask you, or they will give you a receipt. You'll sign the back of it, sign the front of it, give them a copy, bring a copy home, and give it to the front office. Please write what vehicle or program you're with so that that can be put into the appropriate area for budgeting purposes. When refueling, ensure that the vehicle is in park, turned off, and that you don't have passengers or yourself entering or exiting the vehicle once stopped and fueling procedures have begun. I told you that we had some minivans, and 3 of those minivans are hybrids, which means those are electric vehicles. We have 2 charging stations on camp. One of them is located near the shopper's office. The other one is located up at junior leadership. I will discuss in detail the specifics on charging those vehicles to the individuals using them. Wheelchair policy. In the past, camp has not transported, nor do we expect to transport people in wheelchairs. But if necessary, those who use the chairs would either be transferred to a vehicle, seats, and wear seat belts, or be seat belted into chairs that are in locked positions and secured to the vehicles. Accident procedures. I talked a little bit about the transportation safety pamphlet, and one of the things I mentioned was accident procedures. Those will be on the reverse of this document. The procedures are to contact 911 if injuries are life-threatening. Conduct second aid within your training. Move the vehicle out of the way of traffic, mark the location. Ensure we're looking after taking care of the campers, and have another staff member waiting for them, and then go ahead and exchange information with the other driver and call back to camp so that we can get a practitioner working and notify the front office. Required items. There are several items that are going to be back in the vehicles. These have not changed from years past. There's actually a couple additions. Again, those items are going to be on your transportation safety pamphlet. But the big things that I want you to be alert to: the fire extinguisher, 3 safety triangles, and a second aid kit. In addition, we need to make sure we've got the tire changing tool, registration, insurance card, the safety pamphlet, and a couple other items that should already be in there that are listed on the pamphlet here. Vehicle backing procedures. The single most overlooked cause of mishaps has been reported as 40% of all recreational vehicles are due to backing. And for some reason, camp falls into that recreational statistic. I can tell you from my experience here that the backing incidents we have had have all been due to not having a spotter. I have not had one person or incident in which there was a person spotting and we backed up into something. So this kind of goes back to what I talked about earlier with the cameras and not using them as a crutch. Make sure you're using your mirrors. You absolutely have to have a spotter in a van, especially some of the big vans we have now, much larger than the 15s we used in years past. Rocks, buildings, trees, campers, these are all things that we know are out there, but we just cannot see them when we're backing up. I just can't say much more about that than make sure you have your mirrors adjusted properly in a spotter. Passenger procedures. If you're not driving, it's your responsibility to manage passenger behavior and safety in the vehicle. And what I'm talking about here is assisting the driver who needs to be focusing on the road, looking out, helping with the campers, ensuring that we've got enough staff for how many passengers are in the vehicles. Be familiar with the transportation safety pamphlet and accident procedures, because in the unlikely event something happens, there are two of you there. The driver will be focusing on other things, and this is a good place for you to take control of that particular portion. If you're going off camp, you need to ensure that the office has a record of all passengers in the vehicle. You have to ensure that everyone is wearing a seatbelt, and that if a passenger weighs less than 40 pounds or is less than 4 feet 9 inches, they must have a booster seat. There will be booster seats available in the front office should they be needed. There's no standing or moving in the vehicles. You know, your responsibility as a passenger to keep control in those situations and ensure that everyone is adhering to that. Music should be camp appropriate in a reasonable volume. The driver has the ultimate say on what that volume is. We need to ensure that the driver is free of distractions. If we're driving the 15 passenger or larger vehicles, at least one counselor should ride in the rear third of the vehicle to ensure maximum vision and coverage. This includes buses on our trips and CedarS Express. Driving in the dark. We will have single-sex vehicles, or male-female will be separated by aisles. Keep exit door clear. Do not block with bags or equipment. We talked about driving buses earlier, and ensuring that the passengers are well versed with the evacuation procedures, the emergency exits. The same applies here. They're a little bit different on the 15 passenger vehicles we have, so it's good to familiarize all people with those. When loading or unloading passengers, the vehicle should be parked on a flat level surface and away from other hazards. Make sure we're not exiting into traffic or over a steep embankment or anything where we could cause injury. Other situations, once in a while, maybe once or twice in the past, I've had people get stuck. Under no circumstances, and I cannot stress this enough, do we push the vehicle with another vehicle or with people. This sets us up for injury, and it's just a recipe for disaster. So do not do that. We have enough vehicles to get you out. There's no need to push and cause excessive damage, additional damage, or injure anyone. If your vehicle has four-wheel drive, which most of them do, engage the vehicle, engage the four-wheel drive, and see if you can't creep out of there. And when I say creep, we should be just moving slowly. And I don't expect to see lots of dirt and mud flying and just burying our vehicles deeper. Vehicle malfunctions. If you notice something wrong with your vehicle, please let me know. Do not assume that we know. These vehicles thus far, we've had a couple check engine lights, but for the most part, they're just mechanically sound, and we're really excited to be starting a new season like this. So if you see anything, let me know. If you're having problems with the battery, you need a jump, I ask that you call the maintenance team, and one of us will come out and assist you with that. We don't want any injuries or any batteries disconnected, misconnected, that may cause a problem later on. So please get a hold of maintenance, and we will come out and take care of that. Passenger needs. If you're on a trip and one of your campers needs to go to the bathroom, or they're feeling nauseous, and it gets to the point where pulling over is the thing to do, Do that within your training and within wisdom. You know, pull over, find a nice safe place to pull over. Assist the passenger with whatever the need is, and then call camp so that the practitioner and the director and folks are aware of that. If something happens and we need to clean up the vehicle, find a place with paper towels and some water, do a light cursory cleaning until you're able to get to camp, and then we'll do a more thorough cleaning here. There's some additional training that needs to happen before we can ensure that everyone is up to speed and completely certified, but we're going to have to do those here. Those are under the hood trainings where we'll go through the fluids. 15 passenger van certification is a hands-on that we have to physically have the individual in the van driving, and then our trailer training and certification. So 3 additional blocks. Can't wait to see you guys here, and really looking forward to sharing the fleet and the summer with you. See ya.